Hi.
Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new kangaroo leather upper variation of the New Balance Visaro 2.0. Now you guys may have seen my video on the synthetic version of this shoe, the main version if you will. If you haven't, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen. It's a unique boot to say the least, and you can definitely say that about the kangaroo leather version as well. While it's a fair bit different in terms of the upper, it has a very similar internal construction, and of course the sole plate stud pattern, that remains the same as well. In the video, we're going to go over all the details. I'll compare it to the synthetic model throughout as I can, and of course we'll take a look at how these things fit and feel on feet. So if you are interested in learning more about the kangaroo leather Visaro 2.0, stick around, watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $210 retail price. These guys retail for $10 more than the synthetic model. So if you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. Now, included with the shoes being a top-end model, it does come with a string bag in matching colors and patterns to what you're going to find on the shoe, kind of expected with a top-end model nowadays. Now, in regards to the actual tech specs and materials on the upper, being that this is the leather variation, you obviously want a fair amount of leather, and New Balance has done a pretty good job of this with this particular model. You're going to find that you have kangaroo leather spanning from this seam right here on the lateral side through the entire forefoot toe box area, wrapping all the way around to the medial side, and the entire midfoot is kangaroo leather on the medial side, which is really nice. Then you have this seam right here. From here back, wrapping around the heel, and then the lateral side here where you actually have the New Balance N, that's all a synthetic leather that's not too far off from what you'll find from the synthetic model. I would actually say that this is a little bit of a softer material, slightly thinner as well. So how is the quality of the kangaroo leather? Because that is obviously a big question with any natural leather soccer shoe. It's good. It does have some firmness out of the box, but that's not a big deal. That's going to soften up over time. I think the big notable thing here is the fact that it's actually very, very thick. This is a much bulkier shoe than I was expecting, especially coming off of the original kangaroo leather New Balance Visaro, which didn't feature a ton of leather. That was my main gripe with that one. This one definitely has more, so they improved in that department. But this feels a lot thicker to me, which is not a bad thing, but I think for a lot of people, they don't necessarily want a shoe that feels overly bulky. And not to say that this feels overly bulky, but it's bulkier than what you're going to find from a lot of other kangaroo leather shoes that I guess this would be competing against. Something like a Nike Tiempo Legend or even a Copa 17.1. With that being said, the quality of the leather, very, very good. You can see the actual quilted stitching pattern within the leather kind of mimics the hexagon mapped out pattern that you'll find on the synthetic variation. Even though it really has nothing to do with the leather model, they just wanted to have somewhat of a similar look, I suppose. The tongue is a synthetic material, which I'm personally not a fan of. I really would have loved to have seen that be leather. And then, like I said, the synthetic material throughout the rest of the shoe, not that big of a deal, honestly. I know the lateral side of the shoe is synthetic through the midfoot, but I don't really mind that just because it's not a part of your foot that you're going to be controlling the ball with all that much. So if that's thinner than the rest of the upper, it's not that big of a deal. Plus, the benefit of having synthetic in this part of the foot is the fact that it is going to add to the overall lockdown and security of your foot inside of the shoe. It's going to make it more responsive just because this is a much firmer, stiffer material than the actual leather. The overall touch, though, that you're going to get from this shoe is a very heavy leather-like padding because it is a nice, thick kangaroo leather. Is that for everybody? Absolutely not. The shoe in general is going to have a bulkier feel, but again, that's kind of to be expected with this model after watching this review. So if you're watching this, you kind of know what you're getting into with this particular shoe. As far as the cut of the shoe is concerned, it is a low cut, as you guys can see. Nothing too crazy there. What's interesting is the internals, which we'll get into in just a second. You have an internal plastic heel counter right here, and then the lacing system is central. So that is a change coming from the original Visaro, where it was slightly off center to the lateral side. This has a central lacing system that has a decent amount of depth to it, and it does have the extra lace hole at the top. So normally they give you that extra lace hole as kind of an optional thing, but I find that on this particular shoe, the new Visaro in general, you actually have to use the second lace hole so the sides don't flare out a lot as well in order to get actual proper lockdown in the heel. The first lace hole, skipping the last one, to me doesn't do it for me in terms of locking my foot in place. So using all the lace holes is recommended in my opinion, but we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. Now internally, that's where things are kind of unique. It has pretty much a one-piece construction for the entire inside of the shoe. Reminds me a lot of the Under Armour Speedform, although I would say that Under Armour perhaps did it a little bit better than New Balance did it on this particular shoe. So the actual lining through the heel is consistent throughout the entire shoe itself internally. So it's a very soft, almost kind of cotton t-shirt type material. It's the best way I would describe it. There's a little bit of extra padding kind of bumping out around the back towards the higher part of the actual I guess collar area of the shoe, but internally at the very back, it's very, very firm. You're pretty much right on that plastic heel counter, which I don't love, but it does fit pretty well. So heel slippage and general discomfort in the heel area, not that big of an issue. Because of this one-piece construction as well, similar to that Under Armour Speedform, New Balance has implemented no insole here. So instead of an insole, you actually just have liner on top of foam, and that foam is fresh foam. We saw this in the form of the insole on the original Visaro, but this time around, they've actually incorporated the insole as a midsole on the shoe. So it's kind of difficult to see on this colorway just because you have a black rim to the sole plate as well, but there is an actual midsole running from heel to toe on this particular shoe, and fresh foam is something you will find on some of their running and training models. It's supposed to provide more underfoot cushioning than the average soccer shoe would. And in all honesty, based on my experience with this shoe as well as the synthetic model, it just feels like a normal insole setup. It doesn't really have any significant amount of underfoot cushioning, although it does add a significant amount of bulk to the shoe. The bulk that they've added, I would expect it to feel more like a running shoe underfoot, or at least very close to it in terms of the amount of underfoot cushioning that you would get. And quite honestly, you don't get that from this shoe. It's different from a normal insole, yes, in that there's nothing to move around. It's all one piece internally, and you do feel fairly connected to the shoe, but it also does feel bulkier than a standard insole setup, especially in comparison to the same type of foam we got from the original Visaro. But in terms of underfoot cushioning, it reminds me of that original Visaro. This doesn't feel like anything that I haven't tried before. It's not a significant amount of underfoot cushioning to justify the amount of bulk that they've added to the shoe is kind of what I'm getting at. So it's an interesting idea, but not necessarily something that I think works all that well in this particular design, or at least with the foam that they've used. There's a good amount of foam there, but again, it doesn't feel particularly plush underfoot, which is a little bit disappointing because I think that's the main draw for this model in general, be it the synthetic or leather variation. That's kind of the big thing that they changed coming from the previous Visaro. As far as the sole plate and stud pattern is concerned, the sole plate is definitely stiffer than what we got from the original Visaro as well. That's something that they did intentionally do with this particular shoe to give it a more structured sensation on foot, which it definitely does have. You're gonna find that the stud pattern itself is kind of a tweaked variation from the original Visaro. It works quite well. It's nothing too crazy as far as the layout is concerned. You have some hexagon shaped studs and some triangular shaped studs. They're laid out in not too fancy of a combination, 4 at the heel, 4 on the lateral side, 3 on the medial side, 1 support stud in the middle. It gets the job done. It is a firm ground, natural grass only stud pattern, and on that surface, it does work pretty well in regards to overall traction. The other thing that's definitely very distinctive about this shoe is the overall shape and look of it. It has a somewhat interesting shape because of the Proform last. This is something that, again, New Balance did implement on the Visaro, but they've taken it kind of to the next extreme here, making the shoe very much shaped like a foot. And obviously not everyone's foot is shaped exactly like this, but the end result is a shoe that has a much higher volume and just feels bulkier than I think it should have felt. And again, we'll talk about that more a little bit later during the on-feet portion of the video. In regards to weight, the shoe in a size 9.5 US weighs in at 8.9 ounces, which in comparison to the synthetic variation, it's the exact same weight. So you're not gaining or losing any weight going for synthetic or leather, which is actually kind of interesting. You would probably expect the leather version to weigh a little bit more, but that is not actually the case. Overall though, 8.9 ounces, while that's not heavy, it's not light. And I think that's what kind of people expect from this particular shoe. So in that department, again, I would say it's kind of a downgrade coming from the original Visaro model. As far as the looks of the shoe are concerned, I'm personally not crazy about the look. I know everyone's gonna have their own opinion on this. There's no way to properly review the look of a shoe, but I think for most people, the new Visaro in general, Probably down to the colorways more so than the design. I just don't think it's the greatest looking shoe. This is the same general colorway they launched with the original leather Visaro for the first generation boot. So black upper with, of course, the white New Balance branding on both sides of the shoe, your Visaro branding in orange on the back, and then you have some orange in the sole plate and liner as well. So definitely an interesting shoe, pretty straightforward, not overly bright, which I think most people would perhaps be interested in this particular shoe. Probably wouldn't want something bright anyways, but for me, I don't care for how they look, but I'd be curious to hear your opinions down below in the comment section. With that being said, let's take a look at how these things fit and feel on feet. So you can see on the right shoe, I actually swapped in some wide Orange Punch reflective SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. If you're interested in a pair, there'll be a little pop-up on screen, as well as a link down below in the description. So be sure to go ahead and check that out. So when you put these on, you'll immediately notice that the shoe has a curvature underfoot, where it's actually curving where the toes kind of pointed up a little bit, which is kind of unusual. I don't really care for that, but that is something that will change after some break-in time. So don't really view that as a major, I guess, sticking point in terms of how this shoe is going to feel for its entire lifespan. Tying them up, pretty straightforward. Central lacing system, so you're able to get a nice kind of good amount of customization through the midfoot area. But again, you have to use that second lace hole in order to prevent these from flaring out too much. If you don't use it, they flare out a lot and you don't really have sufficient lockdown in the heel. So again, really recommend using all of the provided lace holes on this particular shoe. I'll just tie these up normally just because there's not a lot of space right there. And it'll just keep things moving here. So again, getting them on, pretty straightforward. This is one of very few shoes now that actually has a normal construction with a regular low-cut opening and a standard tongue design, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people view that as kind of old school, or I guess traditional now, even though, again, there's nothing obsolete about doing a shoe like this. So I'll just tie this one up really quickly here so you can get a look at both of them on feet. And again, the initial impression you're going to have from this shoe is that the shape is a little bit odd. This is a leather shoe though, so unlike the synthetic model, this does have potential to change, which you definitely will notice after a few wears. The leather softens up significantly, it's gonna stretch, it's gonna form to the shape of your foot. So it's definitely gonna offer a softer, more customized fit versus the synthetic model that I think just has kind of a rigid sensation in general. I'm not a huge fan of the upper on the synthetic version of the shoe, but the leather model, again, once broken in, give it a few hours of wear time, it does feel a lot more comfortable than it does out of the box. Nonetheless, the interesting part again is that midsole, the fact that you do have more bulk for the sake of what's supposed to provide more underfoot cushioning. And again, it doesn't really feel that abnormal. It doesn't feel more significant than a normal pair of soccer shoes in terms of underfoot cushioning. In fact, I would say it actually feels pretty firm underfoot, which is surprising given how drastic the design of this shoe actually is. As far as width and general shape is concerned, they've definitely got some decent width to them. The midfoot is definitely the tightest part, where the forefoot and toe box area, you can see it has kind of an anatomical shaping to it. That's part of their Proform last. So it does have a good amount of width overall, not a perfectly round toe. It kind of has that natural shape of the foot curvature, similar to what Puma has done in the past. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Evo Power in that regard, although much bulkier, much higher volume. You have a good amount of height to this shoe. So they're going to fit most people pretty comfortably, especially after some wear time, given that the leather will stretch. And I believe they do offer these in a wide fit variant as well. This is the regular fit one, which does have decent width to them. So if you do have a really kind of, I guess, regular foot, the regular version will fit most people. Whereas if you do have a wide foot, they do make a wide fit variation as well that I would expect to fit a fair bit wider than this particular version does. As far as sizing is concerned, they run about a half size small. So instead of wearing my usual size 9 US, I bumped it up to a 9.5, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. So that is pretty much it, guys, for my review of the kangaroo leather variation of the New Balance Visaro 2.0. An interesting shoe to say the least, but if you are interested in a pair for yourself, you can click the little eye in the corner of the screen or the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $210 retail price. If you have any questions regarding this shoe, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.